Dang! These headphones retail for $44.99, and if musical engagement and honesty are what you want, they're worth it. Sorry, but you probably won't find better for less if you use the same standards we do. As I said, dang! Or if you're looking for high performance headphones, yay! Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, music lovers and audiophiles. Today I'm in our headphone lab where I've been listening to today's review subject, the Dan Clark Corina headphones. I hope you enjoy this. The Dan Clark Audio Corinas are electrostatic headphones, which positions them in the company of other top-range headphones, including models from Stax, Hi-Fi Man, Warwick Acoustics, and Sennheiser. Some of these are priced at $50,000 or more, although these are usually packaged with an Energizer amplifier. My point isn't that $44.99 is inexpensive, because it isn't, but that electrostatic headphones as a group have prices that start in the thousands of dollars, not in the tens or hundreds. The question this naturally raises is whether electrostatics do things that might justify this price if the price falls within your budget. I mean, if the price doesn't fall within your budget, then nothing can justify it for you. There's much that could be said on this subject, but let my engineer's brain mention two key elements of electrostatics. First, they use a very low mass planar diaphragm to make sounds, and this diaphragm is driven over its entire surface area. F equals ma and all that suggests that an electrostatic could have lower distortion than conventional cone dynamic drivers. Engineering is never so simple, but that's one idea in favor of electrostatics. Other idea of electrostatics is that the drivers, the diaphragm and its motor system, do not use magnets. Well, so what? Well, magnetic drivers generally are subject to something called hysteresis, which is a fancy term for an inherent nonlinear distortion in magnetic circuits. Linearity, not nonlinearity, is what you want. Eliminate the magnets, as in electrostatic headphones, and you should have more linearity and lower distortion. Just to round out this quick overview of the Dan Clark Corinas, they are wired and have circumoral ear cups. Weight is almost exactly 1 pound, which is common in top-rank headphones. They require a special electrostatic amplifier, which supplies a bias voltage to the stators that create the electrostatic field within which the drivers move. If you have a headphone amp for dynamic or planar magnetic headphones, it won't work for these, and the required Energizer amplifier will be an added expense. I found them comfortable, but ear pad pressure is on the low side, and depending on your head side, they may slip a little bit if you tilt your head very much. All right, let's talk about sound quality since that's really what we're here for. I'll go into some detail with my objective observations, but first let me say that the overall voicing of the Corinas works impressively well across a wide range of music. I opined in a recent review of the Magico S5 speaker that when you get to a relatively low level of distortion, you cross a threshold beyond which the listener focuses less on audio qualities, which are often problems that are distracting, and you focus much more on the music. This threshold probably differs among listeners, but I found that the Corinas crossed it, and in that sense were a game changer. To expand on that a bit, most headphones have a frequency response profile that may work nicely with some music and often works not so nicely with other types. Plus or minus 10 dB variations are not uncommon in frequency response. In contrast, the Corinas have the lowest frequency response deviation I've heard, which seems like a really good start. But you have to understand that this is married with subtle and careful choices about the deviations that are there. Take a look at my perceived frequency response, i.e. adjusted for the Harman HRTF target curve. I observed several elements in this graph that I think are crucial. First, the bass is slightly elevated, and though some might want more, our reference standard of the sound of real instruments leads to a preference for minimal deviation. The bass detail and foundation here is excellent, so time domain as well as frequency domain performance seems to be good. Next up, I note that the upper bass to lower mid-range is very flat. This is the range of many instrument fundamentals, and most headphones deviate more than the Corinas in this crucial region. At the top of the mid-range, there's a very small bump, which may create a sense of openness and dynamics. Whether the FR curve is the reason, excellent dynamics are what you hear with the Corinas. And then we come to the upper mid-range and treble. This is a messy area for many headphones, and peaks especially are problematic and tough to EQ. The Corinas, again in contrast, have a tiny, smooth shelf from the upper mid-range to the mid-treble. The resulting mid-range transition can lead some vocals to sound a trifle recessed, though the detail provided compensates somewhat. The bigger thing is that the response above the transition region lends a beautiful sense of accurate tonality to strings and cymbals and female vocals on a large proportion of recordings. Listening to hundreds of recordings on about 100 audio systems per year suggests that a statistical analysis of mixing and mastering would show a bias toward excessive treble. I want to stress that the deviations from flat here are smaller than normal. They are well within the subtle flavoring zone demarked by the Absolute Sound logo on the graph. I don't really care, and I don't think you should care about the graph per se, but I would advise caring about the musical results, which are outstanding on album after album. A few examples may help give insight into these observations. Highway Prayers by Billy Strings is a modern traditional bluegrass album. If you know bluegrass, you know that bluegrass has instrumentation, in this case guitar, banjo, bass, mandolin, and fiddle, that can serve up a lot of complex note combinations in similar tonal ranges. On the Corinas, these sounds are full and lively, but also very easy to distinguish, so you can concentrate on different performers as you wish, which is a really wonderful thing about bluegrass. Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures sounded dynamic and balanced on the Corinas. I listened to the 2019 remaster, which showed good instrumental delineation for a recording originally made in 1979 and still only at Redbook resolution. Mizurg's extended play showcased solid bass with good dynamics. This is modern electronic music, so some might expect even more bass, but the tonal definition and punch was very good, given that headphones don't have the ability to move air that hits your body. Kuchka's Can You Hear Me Dreaming has some nifty synth elements with spacious vocal arrangements layered on top. The rhythmic drive of the synth was beautifully timed, while the upper registers just seemed to float on top in delicate suspension with loads of ethereal detail. The reference recordings, Bruckner Symphony No. 7 with the Pittsburgh Symphony, sounded masterfully balanced. Reference usually does a great job, but on this the string tone was even more refined than normal. Just as impressive, when the full orchestra gets rolling, the inner detail isn't blurred or lost, and a certain stridency I've heard on many other headphones is missing, as it should be. This ability of the Corinas to unpack rather than homogenize and sharpen complex passages is a real achievement. I also tested a few standard tracks that are mixed on the bright side. Hart's Dog and Butterfly from the late 1970s, and 2024's Intermission by Maren Morris. In both cases, the treble balance was still too hot when listening on the Corinas, but they didn't take that over the top nearly as far as many other headphones. If you're thinking electrostatics might be too revealing for older or less than great recordings, I want to say clearly that I found just the opposite. For example, the 1958 recording, The Scene Changes, with Bud Powell, has a typical early stereo era balance that's a little rolled off in the bass and treble, but sounds detailed and enjoyable on the Corinas. They don't punish you for liking old pre-Dolby recordings, and in fact bring some life to the proceedings in a very natural way. All right, let's summarize. The Corinas deliver a balanced response that is open and detailed and revealing, but they do this in a natural and forgiving way. That combination suggests low distortion and artful choices throughout the design. If you can afford them, I don't think you'll regret it. I hope you've enjoyed this video and perhaps learned a bit. If you have, check in the description for a link to our weekly newsletters. There you'll find more written and video reviews from our experienced staff of 28 reviewers. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.